train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. This is a verse about parents and children and training up children. Now, the word train here is a little bit different, I think, how we would use it, but I think it's probably the best translation. This word is most of the time translated to dedicate. Well, how does dedicate relate to training? Another word that you could use is to initiate. You think about dedicating a building. In fact, I think this word is used in talking about when the temple was dedicated to the Lord. It's initiated into its service. And so training a child is the same way. They need to be initiated. You know, children do not come with wisdom. You ever seen those commercials? You get a toy or something or some kind of gadget, and it says, batteries not included, right? And children, they come and they're fun and they're great, but wisdom is not included. You have to add that in later and provide that to your children. And if you do not provide the wisdom, it won't come. It just won't, not on its own. And so there's a need for training, for instruction. And it's up to parents, as the ones responsible for their children, to instill knowledge and wisdom in their children. Don't just expect that they're just going to absorb wisdom from the air. It does not happen. We need to provide, and there's two ways to provide instruction and wisdom to children. One is through didactic teaching. Here's some instruction. And the other is through the example of our lives. Here's how things are done. And so, for example, if you're just teaching, if you have chores that you expect your children to do, or some kind of skill, you can't just point them to it and say, go do it. You have to teach them how. You know, all of us experience that. You can't take a 6-year-old and say, hey, son, the car needs an oil change. Could you go do that for me? It's not going to work. They're not going to know where to start. But if you train them, if you teach them, if you bring them along, then they can learn. There was a speaker. We were just at a homeschool convention this last weekend, and I think this was yesterday morning, actually. The speaker, it was actually one of the movie maker guys. What's his name? Stephen Kendrick, I think was his name. The Kendrick brothers, if you're familiar with the War Room, and Chase, what are some of the other movies? Courageous, Facing the Giants, thank you. Really, really great films. Great guys, him and his brother Alex. But he shared the progression of training when you're training your children. And I thought it was so good, very simple. But the first step is when you're training children, especially when they're young, you do it for them and they watch. That's the first step. The second step is you do it and they help. They lend a helping hand while you're doing the thing you want them to learn. The third step is they do it while you help. So they're in charge, but you're helping them make sure they do it the way that they ought to. And then the fourth step is they do it and you watch. So you're overseeing, you're making sure that it's done right, but they are fully in control. And I know that many times in my life I've made the mistake of expecting things from my children and sometimes even getting frustrated and annoyed. And I have to stop myself and say, wait a second, did you teach your child to do this the way that you expected? And if I didn't, then what am I doing? Getting annoyed or upset. This is my job. I'm the one that failed, not them. He only had 4 steps in the progression. I'm going to add a 5th step. The 5th step is they do it while you take a nap. And that's when things get really nice at home. But one thing to keep in mind, training is not discipline. A lot of times I've seen in families, there is discipline when the children don't do it right, but again, they didn't really put in the right amount of effort to train to get them there. It says that if you train them, if a child is trained, they will not depart from it when they are old. Now again, this is a general principle. This is not like a law of physics, but a general principle that if you train a child in the way he should go, when he's old, he won't depart from it. We all have free wills. There are no guarantees in life because of that. We're all free to choose our own direction. But what this is teaching is that what parents do in their children's life matters, and it matters significantly. And so we need to be diligent in training our children. In training them in what? Well, we talked about certain skills of life, teaching them chores. That's important. Teaching them to brush their teeth. Teaching them how to read. Those are all important things. When they're older, teaching them to keep house or how to handle money or wisdom regarding buying and selling. Those are all important things. And those are skills. But we also need to teach them about relationships, right? How to get along with people. And they start with getting along with their brothers and their sisters. And you know what? If they don't learn that, when they get a job, they're not going to be able to get along with their coworkers. When they get married, they're not going to know how to get along with their husband or wife. Learning how to apologize, learning how to forgive. Relationships. Another area of training is in character. You know, it's one thing to get your kids to do what is right, to do what you want them to do, to have outward performance, but another thing that they have the right heart about it, to have that character that they need, to do things for the right reasons, to teach them honesty, diligence, and even things like courage. You know, one of the things that we have tried to do is, I want you to obey, but also I want you to have a good attitude. And so it's not okay just to obey and kind of stomp around and not be happy about it. You need to be happy about it, because this is good for you and good for everyone else. And so sometimes that's challenging to do, and I understand that, right? But let's at least give it a try. So sometimes I'll say, can you show me a good attitude on your face? And we'll get it, and sometimes it's obviously very strained, but I like to see it regardless. And the last area of training, which I think is the most important, is teaching. What does it say again? Train up a child in the way he should go. And ultimately, the way that we should go is into a relationship with God, knowing God. And so as parents, we need to teach our children the ways of the Lord. And not just the law, not just doing right, but knowing Him. Teaching our children to know Him, to fear God, to trust Him, and to love Him. To teach, to train, to show them God's love for them, that they might love Him as well and return that love. Finding their identity in Christ. And just walking with God on a day-by-day basis. That is the most important thing we can train and teach our children to do. And if we're diligent about that, again, there's no guarantees, but the likelihood is that they will continue on in that when they're older.